Music used to have power for me. I remember being crammed inside a rusted old hatchback, hurtling our way down some backcountry roads to a summertime bush party. It was nighttime, the trees were framed in the headlights of the car on either side of the road, and we'd crested this hill when I first heard Perry Farrell's screams opening the mountain song. And I remember nothing about that party, but I do remember the first time I heard Jane's Addiction. On the other end of the spectrum, I remember working a double at my retail job in the mall. I was exhausted, leaning up against some clothing rack when over the speakers came Enya's Orinoco Flow. And I don't know, suddenly I'm in a tampon commercial, riding horses, jumping off cliffs, wind in my hair, living my best life. And I know you think I'm kidding, but seriously, Enya. I mean, this was back in '88 when music still had power for me. It's the summer of '89 when we're introduced to Meche. She's a 15-year-old schoolgirl going to school in Mexico City in Silvia Moreno-Garcia's debut novel, Signal to Noise. And for Meche, music doesn't just have power, it has magic. I picked up Signal to Noise based on the glowing, effusive, emphatic, enthusiastic, Muppet-arming recommendation from Rincey over at Rincey Reads, who would go on to claim it her absolute favorite book of 2015. And frankly, I loved it too. I mean, this could have been just your typical YA novel about a misfit trio of outcasts. You have the petulant Meche, her friend Daniela, who loves pink and frills and romance novels in her easy-bake oven, and of course Sebastian, tall and awkward, bookish and bullied. This is the boy that Meche feels comfortable in her own skin hanging out with. Of course, Meche and Sebastian are completely infatuated with people who are totally wrong for them, and you think you know where this story's going to go. Except that it opens in 2009, and Meche is returning to Mexico City to bury her father. She's been living in Norway, and she's not seen, much less even talked to, either Daniela or Sebastian in the ensuing 20 years. And then it becomes a bit of a mystery as to what happened to break this trio apart. Moreno-Garcia renders teenagers and Meche so very well. Meche is hard edges, stubborn, sarcastic. She's borderline unlikable, and frankly, that's spot on. I live with 3 teenagers, and it's hard. Not just being a parent to them, but being a teenager is hard. They have to figure out family, friends, frenemies, fitting in, and figuring out how to fulfill their future potential. It's no wonder that they're cranky. I mean, they have emotions, big emotions that haven't quite yet gelled into the idealism of the 20s. Instead, they vacillate between sullen moodiness and angry rebellion. So you take that powder keg of the teenage years, and you give them the power of magic and watch the fireworks fly. And that's what happens. Meche discovers that she can channel magic through music. She exacts her revenge on a school bully, channeling the doors break on through. And pretty soon she's gotten Daniela and Sebastian involved, and their trio of magic starts to grow in power, and they start to experiment. Clearly, this is where something has gone wrong that's caused the breach between these friends, and it's just a matter of figuring out what. With music as magic, Moreno-Garcia references very specific songs from 80s pop, 70s rock, jazz standards, and Spanish classics. And she's very specific about naming those songs, so much so that I was able to put together a Spotify playlist, which I'll link below. And that got me to thinking there's got to be other books where music plays such an important part. Now, High Fidelity seems like an obvious choice, but I've never read that. But I have read Eleanor and Park. And author Rainbow Rowell actually created Spotify playlists for her characters. There's Park, side A and side B, that features music from Ecstasy, Joy Division, and The Cure. And Eleanor, side A and side B, that includes music from Regina Spektor, U2, and Modest Mouse. Now, I can't generally read or write with music on. Though sometimes at work I do have music, but it tends towards playlists with songs with no lyrics, interspersed occasionally with coffee shop ambient background noise. But for other writers, they rely on music during their writing process, and this opens up a treasure trove of musical playlists out there. We have Alexander Chi with his Spotify playlist, music he relied on while he was writing the just-released Queen of the Night. And it features music from Le Tigre, The Knife, and Santi Gold. And this is all part of Electric Lit's monthly mixtape, where they get different authors to provide their own playlists. And it could be Lauren Vandenberg talking about the music that helped her get unstuck while she was writing Find Me, or Amelia Gray, author of Gutshot, talking about recreating a boozy summertime pool party. Over at Large Hearted Boy, authors also share their mixtape. This is where I was introduced to Erin Morgenstern and her playlist for her book Night Circus, which features Moby's A Seated Night as the opening to the book, and it is absolutely pitch perfect. And I can also thank her for introducing me to Andrew Bird, who I subsequently absolutely love. She's just one of the many hundreds of authors that are featured there with their own playlists, which include people like Tony Tulatamudis for Private Citizen, Samantha Hunt for Mr. Splitfoot, and Ed Tarkington for Only Love Can Break Your Heart. They're all fantastic and worth checking out. I'll have links also below. I have a different relationship with music now. They say that your musical tastes tend to solidify in your 30s, and gosh, in my 40s, I find myself listening mostly to podcasts. I don't spend as much time as I used to discovering new music. I mean, I grew up in a generation where you could spend an afternoon with a new album, looking at the liner notes and song lyrics, the artwork, and the rest of it. And we were obsessed with fidelity. I have friends that spend a small fortune on stereo equipment or audio equipment for their cars, or at least some good over-the-ear headphones. Kids today, at least all the teenagers in our house, listen to all their music on YouTube. Fidelity is just frankly out the window. Forget about MP3s versus vinyl. So yeah, perhaps I'm a little curmudgeonly as far as music goes. I like what it is that I like. I don't think there'll be a time where I don't love Led Zeppelin, but I'm also obsessed with every cheesy one-hit wonder from the 80s, from The Fix, Taco, Men at Work, ABC, Crowded House. I love all of that. So where are you guys as far as music? Do you like having music while you're reading? Do you have certain songs that remind you of a particular book? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you have a great reading week, and we'll talk to you later.